get started. So we're glad that everybody has come back. I'm glad to see you all again. And for all of our people further away, I'm glad that they are back as well, I hope. So we were discussing last night about how we will discuss and talk about reading and writing today, which we will. But I do want to talk a little more about yesterday. We were talking about the importance of academic and social vocabulary and the BICS and the CALPS. So we're just going to take a small amount of time to talk a little more about that, and then we'll go into the reading and the writing today. So I woke up this morning and I was talking to my husband, and I said, "Is today Tuesday?" And he was like, "No, it's Thursday." And I said, "Oh, goodness." I know, that's what I said. I said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe it is already Thursday." And so because we've been having so much time together and enjoying each other's time. So then I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to have to talk, about this." And so because the fact that I did not realize that it was Thursday, there are some things that we will see on the slides, but we're not going to talk about every single thing. So we will, though, like I said earlier, at the end of the sessions, then Cecilia has you call it an external drive. I call it a jump drive. It's it has a little file, it holds a file in the computer. And so she has that. It has all of the things of the presentation, and it has all of the files of what's inside here. And I actually think there may be some more things, because sometimes when I was looking for things that I wanted us to share, I would see something and think, "Oh, I like that," and then I'd put it in the file. So you probably have a few more extra things, hopefully. So one thing I do want to share is later today, I will show you some of the websites that I have gone to that have information and games and things on them that you could always go to print things off if you had, or even to get ideas from. We'll do that later today. So we're going to start with, why is language so important, of course, when we're speaking? And this is where we're talking about our differences between the BICS and the CALPS. We sort of read a little bit of this last night, but I'm going to just kind of review it just to wake up our brains a bit. So BICS, B-I-C-S, is what we call our social language. It stands for our basic interpersonal communication skills. They refer to linguistic skills needed in everyday social face-to-face interaction. So like we were saying, it's that social language that your students have. When they come in and they're just having a conversation with their friends, or even their family and people around, sometimes it's a conversation that occurs on commercials on the television and whatnot. So the language used in social interactions, it's meaningful, cognitively undemanding, so you don't always really have to think a lot of what's happening. Like, it kind of is very routine sometimes. It's not specialized, so it means it's not specific to the content. And then it takes the learners from 6 months to 2 years to develop their basic interpersonal communication skills. So that is why, if you've ever noticed, even within ourselves, as the students are learning a language and they're learning English, a lot of times they may be watching YouTube videos, they may be watching television, they may be listening to music, and they will start picking up what we call the jargon of what they're listening to. So, for example, a lot of the students where I'm from, when they're learning English, because it is Texas, then there are different shows that talk about, there's a show called Hey Dude, and it's just a show about some kids, and they run around their neighborhood, and they get into adventures, and they get into, scrapes. But the students, when they would come back to school, once they were watching that, they would come back and they'd be like, hey, dude, because dude is just another word like man or like person, like, hey, like now I think it's bro. You know, people are like, hey, bro, which drives me a little crazy, but it's okay. So, but it's the same idea. So it's that social interactive language. A lot of times, students will pick that up, of course, quicker than they will that content because it is less demanding, like we said, cognitively. They hear it all the time. They're around it all the time. It saturates basically their brain because everywhere that they are, as they're learning that, in this case, the English, they hear it a lot. And so, like, if they watch television in English or if they watch YouTube videos in English, they're going to hear more of that and they're going to pick it up quicker. Which is a good thing when we're, of course, starting to communicate. So we're going to do a strategy called a KWL chart. So what you can do is if you have notebook paper, you can write on that. If you want to write in the space of the notes page that you have from me, you can do that as well. But what I'd like you to do is you're going to make 3 columns on your paper just like this. It does not need lines, you just need space. So we use this strategy in our writing and our reading with our students. The K stands for what I know. The W will be what I want to know, and then the L will be what I learned. So when we do this with our students, we just have them make 3 columns, and then we just have them put that K, that W, and the L. And then, of course, the topic would be whatever you may be discussing to that day at your lesson. So we use this as a strategy to help our students organize their thoughts and organize their ideas, because that lends into the comprehension of their reading and the comprehension also of helping them write. And also because we stated that sometimes it's easier for students to to answer than to ask a question. So that is actually why we have the W in the middle. The W in the middle is questions. So what they would do, and what you're going to do as well today, just because I'd like you to kind of practice the strategy yourselves. So, hold on, let me back up for just 1 minute. So we talked a little bit about what the basic intercommunications are for the BICS, and the CALPS, of course, is that more cognitive academic language. So I want you to share with me on your paper, and if you know anything about the strategies or what that is, other than what I've shared with you, that's what you're going to write down on the K, what I know. Okay? So if you know anything else about what we call the BICS, or the interpersonal social communication and the academic vocabulary of communication, then that's the part you will write down. Okay? So we're going to do that right now. So this is more of a you showing me what you know already, if anything. And it's okay if you don't know a lot. It's okay. And that's the point. So that's kind of the reason that we're doing this as you're writing. That's why we do it, because it's a good indicator to see where your students are of, yes, they understand a lot of the topic that you're about to work on, or just a little, or I don't know anything at all. And that is okay, because that's what we call one of those pre-assessments that we use, not as a test, like a graded test, but as a test just to see where is everyone. Yeah. So if you'll just take a few moments, we'll just take a couple, we won't take a very long time, and you're only going to write in the column of what I know, the K. So if you know anything about or have ever heard, like, oh, I heard it on a TV, or whatnot, or I heard Katie say it, you know. But if you've ever heard of the Bix or the Calps, it's with a B. Yeah. But essay has a P. I just noticed that. There is a typo. There's a typo. So, but this is, on this bottom, it says CEPS. I just noticed that. Yeah. It's abajo. It was a typo. So if you know, or if you've even heard those acronyms. Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking, nope, no idea, that's okay. Hello. Hello. Okay, so I know that you're still talking a little, and that's okay to continue, but we are going to do another strategy of how our students understand and know. So we sometimes will have students answer in a way that is not as stressful for them when they are sharing with us whether they know something or don't know anything. So in this case, when we were talking about Bix and Calps for vocabulary, I know that some of you were like, I don't know anything about that, and that's okay. That's why we're here. So if you know, or if you think you understand a little bit about what that social language is compared to academic language, then what you're going to do is we are going to use our hand to show a scale. 1 means I have no idea, right? And that's okay. 2, 3, and 4 is I know a little bit. And then 5 is I know a whole lot about it. Like I could come up there and I could teach everybody about this subject. So if you will show me right now what you believe your knowledge is of like we said, that social and academic language. If we think it's a 1 where it's, I don't really know much about that. If it's a 2, 3, or 4, it's in the middle. And then, of course, 5 is you are an expert and you can share. So go ahead and right now with your hand, show me where you think you are in your knowledge of the vocabulary. And it's okay. Don't be shy. If you don't know any, it's okay. Don't be shy. So go ahead. Can you show me what you feel your knowledge is? Is it 1 where it's not? Is it 2? Sort of, kind of. 3 is more maybe. 5 is a yes. Okay. How about you guys? About a 3 or so? Yeah. Okay. 1 and 2. Okay. Okay. That's good, though, because that means that will help me as well. So that is one of the reasons why we use our 1 to 5 scale strategy with our students, because especially when we're opening a new topic of discussion or topic of our lesson, we always kind of want to see where are they, because that is one, no matter what they're doing. Even when they're in a language classroom, you still have to build background in their knowledge of what they know and add on to that to help them advance their English language. And so we use the scale of 1 to 5 to kind of see and to share, okay, where do I need to go with my lesson? Do I need to spend more time on, speaking about the vocabulary? Do I need to be more time having communication? Do I need to be more time maybe making questions and whatnot? So that's how we use that scale of 1 to 5 in our rooms. So because we don't know a lot about it, that's okay. So normally when we're in our classrooms and we're using this graphic organizer, We use it because it's very visual, but we also use it because, once again, it helps the students kind of put their thoughts down on paper when they may not always be confident or comfortable enough yet to speak out. So we're going to skip the W part, just because, since a lot of you are like, I'm a 1, I'm a 2, and that's okay, because honestly, the big question would be, what is the Bix and the CALP, and how can we use that? Now, because we're in a situation here where we're training and we're using our strategies and learning, that's why we are not going to spend as much time on the middle. So the middle, of course, is where your students would say, for example, I don't know anything about that. Well, they would write maybe what is, or why do we use, or when do you use it, why is it important? So that middle section would always be their questioning section. And just like what you did, in our classes with our language, there's a lot of group and small group and partner participation. It goes into individual work, but it's never the students sitting, honestly, on their own by themselves, doing something side by side and not having a conversation with each other, because that's what's the point of language if you're not going to use it. And because your class is so time oriented, it's very important that you get that communication in there. And of course, just like we said yesterday, it's also important that even if you don't know the language, the English, that's okay if let's talk it out in Spanish, and then let's write it down in our English, because everybody can help each other. So the power of small groups and partner working together before you have that individual student do their individual work is very, very important, because it helps we call it an affective filter. So it means that it helps their nervousness, it helps all of that kind of go lower and go down, and so there's less stress. Because one thing about learning a language, if you're nervous and you're stressed about it, it's harder to learn it, because it's just something about your body mechanics in your brain. It's almost like it puts up this barrier, and even though you may say, like I've done it, I was walking out on the street and someone had asked me a question in Spanish, and at first I thought, what? And then they repeated it, and I was like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that means. But because it's a new space for me in a new place, I was nervous, and so it affects your language learning. So that's one of the reasons why when we do language with our students at home, we do a lot of partners. We do a lot of small groups. And then, yes, they show their individual work, because it's good to know where they are individually, but that comes as well. So now we are going to learn a little more about this. Maybe. Hold on. My little arrow went away. 1 moment. Ay, ¿dónde está? There it is. Sorry, y'all. I've lost my arrow. I don't know where it went. Okay, so I've lost my little spacer. Whoop. There we go. Nope, didn't want that. Okay, so we are going to learn a little bit more about them. Okay, so she is going to share with us what these lovely acronyms are once it loads.
Two very well-known terms in pedagogy with your English language learners, BICS, CALP. BICS is your basic interpersonal communication skills, and we call that the playground language, the social language. That's the, hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? The academic language is called the CALP, cognitive academic.
Yes, academic. It is. It's paused for it.
Academic language proficiency. Now, as students acquire language, they first go through the BIC stage, the, hi, how are you? I'm fine. What's your name? My name is Mary. Nice to meet you, Mary. You too. And they pick that up within a year or two. Really, some students pick it up a lot faster. Some kids have some prior English and go through that stage very quickly. The CALP takes basically 5 to 7 years, and depending on the student, sometimes longer, sometimes less. And that's the content language that helps them to be successful in their content classes. There's a big discrepancy where a student may be socializing in your class and you feel, oh, they're really language proficient, they understand English. They take their first test and they bomb it. Why? The academic language proficiency is not there. So of course, as a teacher, you would want to work with the student, bring into your lesson activities that would help hone that cognitive academic language proficiency. And the SIOP method, the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol as a lesson plan format, is very helpful in helping a student reach that cognitive academic language proficiency, the content language. And again, keep in mind, it will take a couple of years. So you can't expect it at the end of 1 year, at the end of 2 years. It's going to be longer.
So that is something that I find very interesting because a lot of times we forget that the cognitive language takes longer. And it's not so much that the teachers forget it as much as the parents, honestly. Because a lot of times, like we said before, you know, our parents, they'll come to us and they'll say, well, we don't understand. They were doing so well. They were learning so much. And then now it's like they've just stopped. And we said, no, it's because the rigor of the language has changed because every year when they're older and they're going into more content classes and they're learning the language of the content class within their English class, it's harder because they have to build that academic language. And it's not something that they hear every day. You know, they don't go home and their family doesn't say, please permit me to sit here, you know, or please, you know, hands me the, you know, right. I mean, it's just like that academic language, we don't use it. We do not use it at home. And so a lot of the times they hear it within their language at school. They hear it within their homework, which that's another, we'll talk about that on Friday. But cognitive academic language proficiency is the CALP. And proficiency, of course, you all know, it means how well that they are acquiring and using it. And it is cognitive. So the easiest way that, for myself, that I've always remembered it, is BICS is like my buddy's language. Okay, so like, because when I B, there's a B in the front. So with my buddy, you know, I'm going to be like, hey, how's it going? What's happening? ¿Qué tal? What's up? You know? But with cognitive or CALPS, I think of cognitive and like that cognition, like that cog in the machine, like my brain has to turn on to really use that academic language. So things that we use are like comparing, classifying, synthesizing, taking what you already know and pushing it into a new level, creating, evaluating. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why our reading and our writing can be so mountainous, like monumental to teach, is because of that. Because within our reading and our writing, even though we can have a discussion about it in our social language, there's so much academic, cognitive vocabulary that we want them to understand. And it's saturated inside of the reading and the writing, which is why a lot of times when we work with our languages, even though we like to have each component, we like to have in our lesson cycle or a lesson reading, our writing, our speaking, and our listening. The reading and the writing are those components of that language learning that actually come towards the end. And writing is the hardest and usually the last. So, yeah. So, okay. Okay, we did her. Okay, so one of the reasons that we've talked about this language of BICS and CALPS is because for our students, especially to use that cognitive vocabulary, we have to have a space where they can take risks, where they feel confident with themselves, even if it's not like it doesn't have to be, I am 10% or I'm 100% ready to, test out my knowledge in this classroom. It might be like, I'm at a 1.5, but that's okay because every little bit of that helps. So Emily Francis, she's an ESL teacher in North Carolina. She talks about how they have to embrace their culture and their language as a foundation of who they are to consider the acquisition of a new culture and a language, not as a subtraction, but as an additive. So we always say within our language classrooms, even though sometimes we do think, okay, they have to get as much English in our classroom as they can because they're only here for 45 minutes for so much time or for so many days. So that's true. And that's fine. But we also have to know that it's okay, like we said before, if they use their home language, their native language, if they use Spanish to help them produce their writing in English, just to have those ideas and discussions, that's not something that should be stopped. Because what they're doing is they're processing it in the language that they know in order to transfer it and create that bridge into the language that they may not be as proficient in. And so that's always a help. So on that same sense, with our reading that we will talk about in a few moments, that's the same idea. If the students in their classes of lectura are learning reading strategies, such as the main focus of a topic or main idea, or compare and contrast, cause and effect, any of those strategies that they learn in their classes of lectura, those strategies are the same in English. The only difference, of course, is some of the vocabulary, but the strategy itself is the same. So if they have that foundation in their reading class of Spanish, of what's that main idea, making a topic sentence, putting details into their writing in Spanish, then it will help carry over and bridge into your language class in English, which is why we say it's so important to take the other contents and bring them into your classroom when you can, and try to connect them, because a student, anybody, it's not just a student, a person is made to make connections between their life, and to make, why is it important? Why do I need to do this? How is it connected to what I already know? We automatically do that within ourselves, and so especially with the time frame that you have, it is more important in a way for you to find ways to connect those things within the language learning, because that will help them succeed in their other classes. But then also they'll say, oh, I learned about that in lectura, or in sciences we learned about the medio ambiente, like the environment and the habitats, and then now we're talking about them here in our language class. And so it makes them, like we said, it makes them more confident about using their language. And it also connects it because sometimes when we have a language class, students are like, well, it's a class, it's an English class. Like, it's not connected to anything else I do. It's just, I go to my English class. And we're like, no, it's connected to everything you do. You could have a pen pal in the United States and write them. I mean, it's just, there's many things that are connected for that. It's not just a class that they go to. Okay, we're going to skip this for right now. And we're going to skip that. And we're going to skip that. And that. Okay, and we're going to skip this. We talked about this yesterday. Hold on. I'm going to get to the spot we're going to do. So, okay, speaking of, I think this is it. So we're going to do 2 strategies of finding and using our academic language. And one, though, is more, if it'll load. We'll see if it loads. If it loads, one's more lower primary than ours, but we'll see. It's thinking. Today it's done a lot of thinking. I know, right? It's not Tuesday, it's Thursday. We may come back to that. Okay. Come on, little machine. Okay, so while it's thinking, we're going to do one that's in here until it decides to load. Okay. Inside of your envelope. Look, it loaded. See, all I had to say was get out, and then, of course, it's going to happen. Okay, so now you don't have to get anything out of your envelope. This is a nursery rhyme that we sing at home. It is bilingual, so the first part of it is in Spanish. The second is in English. But with our students, this is kind of, by the way, we're going to sing this. I'm going to teach you this. But I don't know, you might know this. Do you know this song? Do you know? I don't. Okay. Well, it's from Mexico, and so that's why I was like, I'm not sure if you guys would know it. It's called Pío, Pío, Pío. It's Los Pollitos Dicen, so it's really fun. It's very catchy. It's very cute. You what? Oh, really? Oh, how fun. So how we would use this is I always like opening and doing lessons with songs. And you were talking about that yourself, how you enjoy having songs and things in your classes. I enjoy it because it's just fun, because sometimes our brains need a break from all of that talking and all of that doing, and it's a very catchy tune. So I am going to play it all the way through one time, and you can just listen to it, and then the second time when I play it again, we're going to sing along. Now, yeah, it's going to change. The chicken dance in Tejas, they have the chicken dance, the do 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 do. Was it? Well, look at that. Cross the nations. Exactly. So, right. So the song itself, it's very social. I mean, I'm going to be honest, there's not really a lot of academic language in it, but the reason that we use it is we lower that affective filter. So we lower that, oh my gosh, I'm now in my English class, I'm a little nervous, and I had a hard time in my last class, I need to just kind of calm down. So we use this that way, and then we carry into it by about they're on the farm. And so then we would start talking about things we talk about food, we talk about plants, what crops are we going to plant at what season. We would pull all of that into this. But this is an introduction, and I thought I'd play it for you because I'm a little, it's a little more for me than everybody, but I like this song. It's fun, and I know. So, and I thought I'd share some with you. One thing I do like about this is if it's the one I'm thinking of, because I had switched to, because one was working better than the others, it will show you the words as well.
Canticos.
So we're going to listen the first time, then the second time we'll sing along. Maybe.
Vamos a cantar.
¡Hola! ¡Hello! Llegaste justo a tiempo. Mamá, mamá, los pollitos van a nacer. Los pollitos dicen pío, pío, pío cuando tienen hambre, cuando tienen frío. La gallina busca el maíz y el trigo, les da la comida y les presta abrigo. Bajo sus dos alas, acurrucaditos, duermen los pollitos hasta el otro día.
Otra vez.
Again?
In English.
Little chickies squeal, pee-oh, 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 when they get so cold and when they want a meal. Mama goes and gets them corn from the field, serves them each their food and warms them head to heel. Chickies sleep so yummy, snuggled up with mommy, and that's just where they'll stay until another day.
Canticos. Pon una canción en tu corazón. Canticos. Vamos a cantar.
¡Hola! ¡Hello! Llegaste justo a tiempo. Mamá, mamá, los pollitos van a nacer. Los pollitos dicen pío, pío, pío cuando tienen hambre, cuando tienen frío. La gallina busca el maíz y el trigo, les da la comida y les presta abrigo. Bajo sus dos alas, acurrucaditos, duermen los pollitos hasta el otro día.
Otra vez.
Again?
In English.
Little chickies squeal, pee-oh, 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 when they get so cold and when they want a meal. Mama goes and gets them corn from the field, serves them each their food and warms them head to heel. Chickies sleep so yummy, snuggled up with mommy, and that's just where they'll stay until another day.
Canticos. Pon una canción en tu
Oh, yeah. So one of the reasons that we use the songs and whatnot, especially the songs when you can find them with karaoke with the words and coming on the screen, is because once again we were talking about how do we incorporate all of the domains, the skills, listening and speaking and reading and writing, and one of those ways is through songs. Later today I'll also show you another song that's more content related to about recycling, but the language of it makes it where it's very let me think of what the word is. Yeah, where it can bring it together. And everyone has a good time with it. And then, of course, you can carry it into, well, let's talk about, do you have family members that, farm? Do you have a garden at your home? Do you know someone that does? But we can take it all sorts of different avenues just from that small, simple song. And it's always fun. Because it's a good time. It's good to have a fun time in our classes sometimes. So what this is up on the board is this is a strategy that we use when we want our students to participate in the conversation with one another. They call it conversation chips, and all it is it's just pieces of circular paper that are different colors, or you can even get anything. I mean, you could have like the pieces of the games that we were talking about yesterday, the game pieces, those could be them. So they would take a few of the pieces of the chips, like 3, and each student will have the same amount. So when you give them to the students, you pass them out with the same amount, and every time the student talks or has the shares, they put the chip into the middle, or the counter into the middle of the table, because they've used that. Yes, just like that. Yes, and I'm going to be honest, it can be anything at all. Like sometimes, yeah, right, real chips. I know. It's like, we're going to have food today because they love food. Oh my gosh. At home, we have these very spicy chips called Takis, which I think they're like it starts with an S, but I can't think of what it is here. That's it, the Takis. The Takis, that's it. Oh my gosh. They have competitions for Takis. Like, they're like, how many can I fit in my mouth before I have to, drink my whole bottle of water? It's crazy. But so when you're doing them, they speak, and they put their counter or whatnot in the middle of the table. And then, but the reason that you give those to the students is they have to try to share that amount of time. So if you give them 3, they each take turns, of course, sharing. But once their 3 counters are done, like once they've put the 3 counters in the middle, then they actually can no longer speak. So there's kind of 2 strategies to this. One, to have the students participate in the conversation. The second, though, is to watch, to see, and to make them aware of themselves. Are they dominating the conversation? Is one or two students doing all the talking and the others are not? That's why this works really well. Because once they don't have any more of the markers in front of them, like the pieces in front of them, then they cannot speak. So if you have a student that likes to talk, then they put their pieces in, and all of a sudden, I can't share anymore. They have to listen. So it kind of, I hate to say force, but it does. It forces those students to share, and then those who are sharing a lot to kind of stop and kind of focus more and listen more. So to take turns from it, which is another reason why we use some things around. Okay, so going back to our Bics and our Calps, which I miss the P in there, but I know it's just right, exactly. It's just missing. It's like one of those days. So we use them interchangeably. We use them especially in school and especially in our language classes. We are social in our class of language, but then also we have that academic rigor and that of working hard to get that academic language up to help them to advance their language. So it's always important to make the distinction between the two. And one of the ways we do that, and this actually is in your envelope, one of the ways that we do that is with what we call accountable talk. So inside of your envelopes, there is a page, and it has small little people, like little cartoon characters, in the small squares. And there's a front, and then also there's a few on the back. So what these are what we call accountable talk. It means that you are aware of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And then, but it also helps when we bring in our reading and our writing. So we are going to be using these today. And if you can't find, I can give you this one. Yes, that is it. Yep. So these are going to stay out on the tables today because as you were discussing, some, like I said, you can speak in Spanish, but I would also like you to test out some of these. And when we are doing some of our reading activities, you will. The reason that we use these is because, as we said before, we really want students to speak in complete sentences. But we also want to take their language and take it up, like rise and make it grow. So within these, there are things like this reminds me of I'm confused about. I think the character is feeling blank because the text says. So these they also call them sentence starters because as they write, that's the same idea. When they're responding to their reading in your classroom, even when they're learning their language, these are very useful to have. They can have them. I know that sometimes you may not have a lot of space on a wall, but just like we said, they could use a book with a notebook to use as a reference. These can go in that. And they are very helpful because they help students who can't always put their ideas into the English words. It helps them do that. And there's going to be some other examples of them too. So we're going to use those with this. Oh, God. Okay, and this, just before I move on to this. So this is another way, okay, to post it up, place it up, and then to have them say, I learned, therefore I think, I predict, because a new question I have is, I wonder, I used to think, but now I think, and these we use a lot for science and for concepts that might have things that change, like the solar system. I'm confused about because. So we always try to place these somewhere in the class and where they can see them or where they have access to them. So like I said, I know that your space is at a minimum. So if they had a notebook that you could place them in, then they could just open it and look through it. And that is very helpful for them because it gives them the confidence to try to write in English when they're not quite sure always how to start a sentence. So we are going to use this tonight with this. Hold on. Okay, not with that. Not with that. We have The Very Hungry Caterpillar, your most favorite book. Okay, so we're going to find that academic language. So, like I said before, we always try to find different ways to pull different things into our classroom for the students to have a wide range of knowledge and ideas. And part of that is through song. So earlier when we sang the song of the nursery rhyme, then Los Pollitos Dicen, we talked about how, okay, we can take that, we can move into different other content areas in it, and of course they're reading. This, however, is a part of speech league. So this is going to carry into what we're about to do with our reading and our writing. The song itself, it's going to have different superheroes. That's all of the little characters, the little avatar characters around. They're all different parts of speech. So what I want you to do is you are going to try to be an active listener, and on a piece of paper, you're going to see if through the song, as you hear the song, as you listen, if you can hear 4 different parts of speech and what their academic name is. So like, for example, if they talk about adjectives, well, you know, when we're talking about the blue dog, the blue horse that we saw the other day, or the yellow cat, we know, okay, well, yellow and blue, those are adjectives. But the actual academic language of this is an adjective. So that leads into our writing and our reading, because as the students are writing, as the students are reading, they have to understand those parts of speech. But also as they get older, you're not going to say to them, find the person, place, or thing. You're going to say to them, find the noun, find the proper noun, find the common noun, even though you may not be their reading teacher, you're still teaching grammar inside of English. And so these are that's the vocabulary that we consider that cognitive vocabulary: adjectives, nouns, adverbs, conjugates, because that's not something they see. They don't open a book at home that says, here are the adjectives today in our story. You know, so your job right now, as you listen to the song, is to listen for that cognitive vocabulary, the vocabulary that's that higher cognitive value, like adjectives. And I want you to see if you can write at least 3. So even though I know we are all teachers in this classroom, and you probably will find more than 3, the reason that I give you a specific number is because with your students, when you are challenging them to actively listen, you always want to give them an outcome. You always want to give them a goal. And if you give them a goal, not a low goal, but if you get them kind of a medium goal, like find 3, and I know there's probably more than 3 in there, then that way they have an idea of where to start, and then they'll continue doing so. So that's kind of why we set find 3 or find 2, or like last night we said find 3, 2, and 1. So with the video, your goal is to find that academic language of parts of speech, to find 3 words that are an academic language word of a part of speech. All right, so that's your job.
Hopscotch! Parts of speech league. Parts of speech league. Parts of speech league. The doctor, noun, pronoun, the great adjective, verb, girl, and Adam, adverb, preposition, put in conjunction, and the article, very remarkable.
Dr. Noun can turn herself into people, places, and things. She can turn into Joe or Mexico, or a fire truck with wings.
When Dr. Noun's not there, pronoun is aware and comes to take her place. It can take the shape of him or her or them, whatever the case.
The great adjective notices details like dark or fast or small. He can tell if something's slimy, smooth, rough, or grimy, hard, soft, short, or tall.
The girl takes every action that time allows. She runs, she jumps and sings, and Madam Adverb tells her where, when, and how, like quickly and quietly.
Preposition directs the mission and knows just where to find you.
They're over the river and through the woods, and they're right behind you.
Captain Conjunction connects the clues. This happened and that as well. Although, if, yet, but, so.
The article tells about Dr. Noun using tools that are terrific. He uses a and then some for general things, and the if it's specific.
Wow, is that an article?
No,
Parts of speech lead. Parts of speech lead. Parts of speech lead. They've talked a noun, pronoun, the great adjective, verb, girl, and noun, adverb, preposition, kept in conjunction, and the article. They're remarkable. They're remarkable. They're remarkable. Parts of speech lead.
Okay, so within that song, you of course notice there's a lot of the parts of speech, a lot of that academic vocabulary. One of the reasons I like using songs in the classroom, especially in the language classroom, is besides the fact that they're catchy, you'll end up leaving with the tune in your head, but a lot of the verbiage that they use, the rhyme words, the connectors, the kind of the syncopation of it kind of gets the kids involved, or the students involved in it. So with your fingers, I would like you to share with me how many parts of speech vocabulary did you find? So you're going to count it out. If you only found 3, it's okay. And see, so how many did you find? Just show me. Everybody show me with your hands, like 5, 6, 7, 0. Yeah. So there were a whole lot. So I know, noun, adverbs, conjunction, articles. Yeah. So all of those are that vocabulary. Now, sometimes when we talk about cognitive vocabulary, you may think, well, articles, conjugates, nouns, those aren't academic. Like, that's not what we call a high rigor word, but it's an academic language word the students need to know to be successful in school. And so that's why it falls under that cognitive language. But I do like it. I also like the video too, because we discussed about how articles in Spanish are el and la, but articles in English, we have a, and, some, the, and so I always like to be able to show the students the difference of that. Okay, so the next activity that we are going to do, you are going to need, I have to find it. You are going to need towards the very end of your envelopes, there is a story called The Dog and His Reflection. So you are going to need that story, The Dog and His Reflection. The story is both on the front and there is a little on the back. So The Dog and His Reflection. You need to find that story. What is it? It may. Did it get stuck behind? Oh, right there. There it is. The Dog and His Reflection. So there is a front and a back. Just so you know. The Dog and His Reflection. Huh. So we're going to move into some strategies with reading, and also some ways that we use those strategies in our classroom for language. So just like we said, in our language classrooms, sometimes we talk about the supermarket, we talk about our family, we talk about our community, and those are all good things. The students need to know those things. But then we also want to raise the level of their knowledge and their interest. So the story that we're about to read is The Dog and His Reflection. The story itself is actually what we call it's an Aesop fable, so it's a fable. So fables will use characters that are usually animals, and towards the end of the story, they're usually short, so they're actually really good to use in a language class. they also will have usually a lesson or a moral at the end of the story. So we are going to read The Dog and His Reflection at your tables. So what I would like you to do is, I'm going to borrow this one again. Okay, what I would like you to do is at your table, you are going to actually take turns reading. So you are going to take turns by reading each one of the paragraphs. Now, there's a few paragraphs that are close together. Like, for example, there's a paragraph on the top, and every time there's an indentation, the space, there's a new paragraph. Some of the paragraphs are short, some of them are slightly longer. But I would like each person will read one paragraph and then pass the story to the next person. So I'm going to let you do that for the moments so that you can read the story front and back, because you're going to need to know and understand that story to a point in order to play what we're going to do next. So I'm going to give you some time to read that. So like I said, just wherever you want to start, whoever you want to start with, and you're going to go paragraph by paragraph of the story. So do you need a picture of this? Do you need that? Did you take a picture of it? Okay. Yes. 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 And you're going to share. Yes. Yes. And then you just keep going with the. So like, because it'll be. Exacto. Yep. Exacto. Yep. does. It does. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I like that. Fables are very good for our language learners. You will. Okay. So you may not be completely finished with the whole story, and that's okay. The next page that you're going to find in your envelope, and you're going to still keep your story out because you're going to need that. So you will have the story of the dog and his reflection, and then you will also find this is a game board. The game board on the top, it's reading response board game, and it actually has dogs on it, and it has that blue background. You are going to also need, just like yesterday, you will need your game pieces, and you will need your dice. So you will have those things. So you will have the story. You will have the game board of the reading response that has a blue background with the small dogs, your game pieces, and your dice. And so just like yesterday, this is another board, game board, because who doesn't like playing a game, that the students can use within their reading response. So you are going to choose a piece, a game piece. You'll place them on start. And it works. Here you go. We're getting to be experts. I know, right? And it's going to work the same way. You're going to roll the dice, and however a number on the dice, you'll move that many spaces, and you will read the question, and then you will see if you can think of a course. Use the reading material, the passage, to find the answer. Now, how I'm going to make it a little more challenging for you. When you are answering the question, I would like you to restate the question. So, for example, So, for example, when you roll and you move, if the question you land on, or if some of them are not questions. So if they're not questions, don't worry. But it says, can you think of another way can you think of another story with a similar theme? So you would say, I can think of another story with a similar theme, and then complete the sentence. So we always want to emphasize with our students that even when they're playing a game, that they can always restate that question. They can always create a complete sentence. And with a game board, it helps them because they can see the question in front of them. So that's always a good strategy to use in your class. Okay. So go ahead, and we'll take a few moments to play, and then we'll share out some of our thoughts. I could see like croquetas. Yeah, we use the same, like whether it's moist dog food or dry dog food. Same. It's the same. It's simple. Some things are easy in English. Some things are hard. To receive, to receive, to receive. I know. Okay, tell me again what how to. So resignated is like the sound comes out. It's resignating. Like we're just like we're done. Oh yeah. So just how would you say that? Maybe like you're yeah, like it's fine. It's okay. Yeah, maybe hopeless or like defeat like you're defeated. So no, because you're thinking, oh, it's whatever. Yep. You're defeated. Yeah. Or defeated. Yeah, defeated. Hmm. Yeah. Frustrated. Yeah, yeah. Frustrated, defeated. You could show resignation as far as like you're feeling like you're sad, like you're upset because, but not as a right. Yeah. So you wouldn't like you. I know. Yeah. It's not. It could be used more in British, like British English, than it is in America, in American English. Yeah. It's a, exactly. Hey. Like, because they'll say like I. Sometimes you may hear that's like a higher. Yeah, because it's like I'm resigned to feel what. But yeah, it's my fate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so while you were playing the game, I saw a little, oh my goodness, I saw a lot of really good strategies. You were talking to each other, you were helping each other understand, you were using the text, the reading in front of you. So, one thing that I want to share with you about the reading is that I know, we talked about how, of course, the states that Texas and here is different because we have our own classroom and you have to move from place to place. So I know that it is impossible for you to carry lots of books from place to place. So there are websites that I will show you in a little while before we leave tonight where you can find the passages of reading on them, both in nonfiction and fiction. So I'm not going to do that right now, but before we leave tonight, I will show them to you. One of the reasons is because during break, I want to make sure they'll all come up, because last time some of them did and some of them did not, but I'd like you to see them. So even though you're not able to carry many books from place to place when you go to visit your students, this is something that we do in our classrooms, something as simple as finding a short passage, honestly, even if it's longer, and then you separate it, because you can always give the students opportunities to read, but not read big, long pieces themselves. So just like we did when we separated it by paragraphs, or like yesterday when I talked about where we said popcorn, popcorn, 1, 2, 3, popcorn, popcorn, read to me. So we always, when we're reading, one of the strategies that we do, sometimes when we as teachers, when we ask students to read, we'll say, read the first sentence, read the second sentence, read the third sentence, read the fourth sentence. And like we were saying before, if you do that, that's fine, but the students don't always listen to the story. They just worry about the sentence they're about to read. So when you do more of a random choosing of students to read, then they pay more attention, because they're like, oh, am I going to be next? I don't know. So one thing that we do in our classrooms, rather than saying, read the first sentence or read the second sentence, we'll do the popcorn. So we'll be even in the higher grade levels, we'll do it because they like it. But we'll say popcorn, popcorn, 1, 2, 3, popcorn, popcorn, and then we'll point to someone, read to me, and they'll start reading, and then we'll go pop, even if they're in the middle of a sentence, and say popcorn, popcorn, 1, 2, 3, popcorn, popcorn, read to me. And then you have to stop. Yeah. So when we do that, then usually, because I know the reading passage, like I know either how long it is or how short it is, and I also know my students' abilities, then you would be what they call the facilitator of that. Other times when it's just reading and you want the students to kind of be involved as well, they can do it as well. But when, like for example, the story that you just read and the story that we're about to read in a few moments, that's nonfiction, then I would be the person that would start the game of popcorn, popcorn, 1, 2, 3, popcorn, popcorn, read to me. And then when I wanted them to stop reading, I'd be like, pop, like it's a piece of popcorn popping out. And the reason we do that is because, like what we just said, if you give your student a specific sentence or a specific read this paragraph, then they tend to focus on that and not listen to the rest of the reading and anything else. And it also helps all the students participate, because let's be honest, we know that not all students or people are the same or alike. We're not robots. We don't all have the same skill level within the classroom, and that's fine. I mean, we're all different and we're all unique. And so that allows the students who are a little more timid when they read to still read, because in a language class, they need to read out loud, because they need to hear that. They need to practice it. They need to see that speech. And But for those that are more timid, if you know, okay, they have a harder time reading or a little more, they have to struggle a little more, then they're the ones that they might only read 3 words. And then you're like, pop, and then you're going to say to the next, read to the next student. So that it's not so intimidating for the students that may not always be able to read that. Because another thing that we tend to do as teachers is we kind of do this. We say this at home. We're like, oh, pobrecito. Oh, like, oh, you really can't do that. Or not can't, but I know it's difficult for you. So we're just going to let, Sarah read. Mm-mm. So in my classroom, I guess I'm kind of hard because I tell them, whether you know how to do it or not, you're going to try and you're going to do the best you can do because you need to practice. Because we all, no matter where we are, have to grow. And that's why we emphasize the whole growing from where you are, not being perfect. Because if they try to be perfect, they're never gonna try. Because they're always gonna move nervous. So we always say grow from where you are. Try. You have to try, even if it's hard for you. Because we have students in our classrooms who are dyslexic. We have students who have autism. We have students they're all mixed together in our classes. And so life, I'm going to be honest, and this is like one of those life lessons that we throw into the students. I tell them, boys and girls, life is not always easy. You have to challenge yourself sometimes. It's not always handed to you. And so we'll say to them, the reading, you may struggle at reading. You may not be the best reader, but how do we become better at what we do? I'm like, Messi didn't get the World Cup, So how do you do that? And they're like, we practice, and we practice and we practice because a lot of our students, even in our classes, they play soccer, or football. They play football. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Well, and then sometimes you can, like, we've done things in our classes where the student who's dyslexic or autistic in our class. So we have a signal between the student and ourselves that they know, okay, they're about to read. Like, I'm going to let them read. Or, if you're able to walk between your students, then you can do something as simple as, like, come up to them and be like put your hand on their shoulder. And they know, okay, I'm about to be next. Um, so they can kind of prepare their brain, for it. Something, right, right. You're the next pop. So one of the ways that we also help our students who are struggling and who are learning to read in the beginning is we do what we call stuck on a word. So I'm going to actually, we're going to talk about this, but I want to go ahead and I would like you, sorry, my brain is going faster than my mouth. Okay, I would like you to find this. It's going to look just like this. There's going to be stuck on a word, and then there on the other side, there's going to be stop and jot. And they're small bookmarks. So there's not enough. Actually, at some tables there will be where everybody can see one. But you can take them out of this. I would just like you to put them back in it once you've finished. So it'll say stuck on a word and stop and jot. I'm keeping you on your toes. I know. Look at this. Yeah, that's exactly. But I thought that I can use that tonight. Okay, so as some of you have seen, because I know you're looking at the bookmark, so this, we hand this to the students and to read with when they're younger, um, or when they're first in their first learning of the language of reading. So one thing that we have noticed with students is that sometimes, and I hate to say this, but when you make it very silly, it sticks in their brain better than when you tell them academically. So this is a very good example of that social language rather than the academic. With the card, with the bookmark that's stuck on a word, we usually use that when the students are in their first stages of reading and they're learning to read. The stop and jot card, that we actually use that when they're more reading to learn. So a lot of times students, when they're younger primary, and they're young, they're learning, like we said, the phonemic awareness, the phonics, and all of them, how sounds go together, how words go together, how we put everything together. Throughout their younger years, we always tell the students that is the time where you're learning to read. You're understanding these sounds go together. When I put the sounds together, the syllables together, they create words. When I put my words together, they create sentences. My sentences create, stories, and so on. And then as they get older, they have to change their thinking. And that usually happens developmentally, if we're lucky, around about their 9 and 10 years old, when they're about, in Texas, we would say third grade. So usually about in third grade, that's when they start to try to read to learn. Now, like we said just a minute ago, not every student is going to be at that same level, and that's okay, because that's where, as you work in those partner groups, as you work in those small groups, that those students who are lower in their reading, they feel confident and comfortable with the students in the room, hopefully, and yourself, to be able to take those challenges and to try and to continue reading, even though it may be difficult for them. But when we first begin our reading process, our reading journey, we use this stuck on a word, and then we also use this story, which I'll play the story in a few moments, but before I do, I'm going to kind of read through this. So each of our strategies, because that's what each one of these are, is it's an actual reading strategy. But each strategy, we give it a specific name. Bird's eye, you look at the pictures for clues, and look for missing information. Lips, the fish. So we always talk about, like, get your lips ready, get your mouth ready. And so that's when their lips are ready to say the first few sounds of that new word. They read to the end of the and they say it again. The stretchy snake, stretch it out. Students have a bad habit when they first start to read. They see a letter at the beginning of a word and they stop reading. So for example, if the word is silly, they see the S, and sometimes they don't read to the end and they say snake. They may not actually read the word itself. So when we talk about stretchy snake, it means look at the complete word, look at the whole word. The students, they stretch out the word slowly. They put the sounds back together. Chunky monkey is where we ask them to take pieces of the word itself to try to find the meaning of it, to try to help them. An odd example is the word together, because even though together, it's together, like the word together, it has the words inside of it, to, get, and so we say, okay, look inside it, look and see, do you see a word that might help you find what the rest of that word is? So we use that and that's what the chunky monkey is. Like we find that chunks of those words. Okay. Skippy frog, they skip it and hop back. So as they're reading a sentence, for example, the cat scampered up the tree. Okay, let's say that's the sentence. Scampered means they hurried up the tree, right? But they don't know it. So they might say, the cat, and they might look at it and might scamp, 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 scamp. You know, they don't know. And then up the tree. And there's an example, and of course there's usually illustrations. And so they see the cat going quickly up the tree. So then we'll say, okay, what do you see? And they'll say, scampered. And they'll say, well, what is the cat doing? And they say, oh, they're hurrying. They're going fast up the tree. We said, that's right. So they're scampering up the tree. So they're using the illustration. But then they go back. So that's why it's called Skippy Frog, because they skip it. But as we talk it out, or they use the hints or the clues in the text or the illustrations, then they go back and they reread the sentence so that they can put it in their brain and it makes more sense to them. So that's what Skippy Frog, because they hop over the word, but then they come back to it and read the whole thing once again. Try and lion, try it again. A good example is the word read, R-E-A-D, because it is either read in some context or read in others, but it is spelled the exact same way. Why that is, I don't know. I think like someone a long time ago, when they were forming the English language, were like, ha-ha, let's do this. You know? It's like, why make it easy? You know, because lead is the same way, lead and led. So that is when we say try and lion, we talk about try it in the sentence. So if it says, Sarah read a book last night, and they say, Sarah read a book last night. I say, okay, well, when was it? Well, it was last night. So if it was last night, what did she do? It's happened in the past. Oh, Sarah read a book last night. And then the last one of flippy hippo, to flip the vowel sound. Try a short or a long vowel sound. Which one makes sense? So when we say words such as, listen, have that I sound in the middle. Sometimes students will come and they'll say to us in the morning when they're coming from home, they'll say, Miss, I listened to my music last night. And we're like, okay, licensed? Because they have that, it's that I, and there's an E towards it. And we'll say, okay, it's not licensed. What other sound does that I have? And they're like, and they're like, listen. Oh, I listened. And I is a very good example because it is super confusing for our students in Spanish and English, because when you're spelling in Spanish and you're talking about la E, right? You're talking about the I, like the I, in Spanish. It's not. I mean, they get so confused. Like, we're like, no, it's not like elefante. Because when we were writing in English, elefante, the E sound, right, is an E in Spanish. So they always mix it up. So we always try to find ways to help them. So some of the things what we do is, I know this is not spelled with the actual letter I, but we'll say, remember I, like I, and they're like, and we're like, not elefante, and they're like, oh, okay, and they'll write it. But that is one that is confusing for them when they're writing the sound. Because even when we're spelling words out, it's always fun they're like, no E, no I, no, I mean. So, okay. So we are going to pull this out in a few moments again. Right. But this is a story that we really like to use at the beginning of our reading when we're sharing with the students how to be a successful reader and how to find the books. Now, like I said, I know that you may not have a way to bring a lot of books into the class for them, but that also does not mean that they are not choosing books. Like they may go to a bookstore and look for books. They may go to a library and look for books. When I show you the website of the Epic Books website, they can look at books there at their home during the weeknights. And so this is one of the reasons why we do this, because sometimes choosing a book, students look at the cover and then they're like, ooh, that's fun. and then they open it and they're not able to read it. So even though it's okay to look at the pictures and make stories, we still want them to have that strategy of trying to read the book. So we use this as an introduction to our students about how to read a story. And then we use another strategy of making connections, which we'll discuss. That leads into our writing as well.
How to Read a Story by Kate Messner, illustrated by Mark Siegel. Step 1. Find a story. A good one. It can have princesses and castles, if you like that sort of thing, or witches and trolls, as long as they're not too scary. Step 2. Find a reading buddy. A good one. A buddy can be older or younger or a person your age or maybe not a person at all. Make sure your reading buddy is nice and snuggly and make sure you both like the book. If you don't agree, go back to step 1. Sometimes it takes a few tries to find just the right book. Step 3. Find a cozy reading spot. Outside is fun, but not if it's very cold. Unless you have thick woolen blankets and hats and scarves and cups of steaming hot cocoa. And not if it's very hot, unless you have trees to shade you from the sun, a hammock to catch cool breezes, and tall glasses of icy lemonade. Inside is good. Couches are cozy. So are chairs big enough for 2. Just be careful not to get stuck. Step 4.
book and they have to be able to read at least 5 words on a page to say that, yes, I understand. I know how to comprehend that book. Because even though we really want our students to read, and those students who have a little more difficulty in it, we want them to find things they can read, we also don't want to stop their growth by them choosing a book that they truly cannot read. So, and then of course in the middle, this is something that we would try to do on different, like our lesson cycles. So we may have our students, in our case, we have our students every day. But I know that you may not have your classes every single day. So if the lesson that you were doing, let's say you decided you wanted to spend 4 weeks on it, because that's the time you would meet the class 4 times, then we usually use this reading towards the end of that week, like on a Friday, or like that last class that you would meet. So we try to, with our lesson cycles as we're learning, we try to keep the students engaged, but we also try to give them some times where after that objective and that lesson has been reviewed and has been learned and maybe even tested on, that they have a small short time of free time, whether that's bring a book from your home and read or whatnot. And so that's what the middle is. So with us, because we had them every day, at the last kind of 15 minutes of our class, or 10 even sometimes, would be they would have to read a different way. Sometimes even we would use it as a warm-up where they entered the classroom and you were getting everything set up. And so then for that 5 to 10 minute time right at the beginning as a warm-up, they would read. So on Monday they would read to themselves. On Tuesday they would read to someone. On Wednesday they would read to someone, meaning someone else. They're not the same person as before. On Thursday they would read to themselves, and then on Friday they would listen to their reading. So if we had access to our computers, then they would get on their computers and go to Epic, and they would listen to the stories. So it's just another way to incorporate reading and independent reading time into some part of your class. Now I know, time-wise, it may not happen all the time, and that doesn't mean it needs to happen all the time. It's okay if you have a class period of doing that listening, speaking, reading, writing, putting it together for a couple of days, and then you're like, okay, you have worked so hard, we're going to take a little break. We're going to take a little brain break, and then here's an opportunity for you to read. So I just put that up there just as a possibility that if you can find a way to fit it in. And then, of course, we just talked about the strategies that we use for young readers. We always have placed them into their reference notebooks so they can look. And then we also will always create the bookmarks that we have. We'll put those into a sleeve, and the sleeve goes into notebooks that we have and that we'll take out of, so that it's easier, like mobility-wise, it's easier. But then we'll pass off those to the students. One of the ways that we use this to see if they understand the strategies of their reading, even though this, like I said, is usually with younger students, is we will actually have the students, when we're first learning them, act out them. So we will do things where we will cut the bookmark apart, and we'll use the pictures, and we'll hold up a picture, and we'll hold up like the Skippy Frog, and they'll have to share with us. They'll have to tell us, okay, this is what we do with Skippy Frog. When we don't know the word, we have to skip, and they'll hop because they're a frog, and then come back to it. So that's one way that we use other than just having it in front of them and teaching it to them, just so that they can make it their own too. We actually have them pantomime and act out each one of them. So we'll hold up like the hippo, and they have to tell us what it is, and act it out. Sometimes with our whole group reading, we'll even have it where, as they're reading a story maybe about community, or a story about their family, or a reading passage, and they do one of those strategies, they'll be like, oh, miss, I stretched my snake. So it's always fun to hear that, because that they're internalizing what they need to do to be a better reader. Uh, so, okay, we're gonna do one more thing and then we'll have our break. So this also is inside of your envelope. One thing that I did notice, so their poster, their small strategies, as the students get older, just like our vocabulary changes as far as grammar, like now don't look for the people, places, and things. You're going to look for the nouns. We're going to look for the adjectives, not the describing words. This is for the older students. So this is older primary. The students now have learned their strategies of learning to read, and now we're focusing into the strategies of reading to learn, which when we come back from break, we're going to do a small activity with this. So the vernacular changes, the wording changes. It's no longer, get your lips ready, stretch the snake. These are more of the reading strategies that I said to you before that they will be learning in their classes of Spanish for reading, and that they will carry over. So things like to visualize, to infer, to predict, to question, to monitor and clarify. And, but yes, okay, so we will discuss those a little more in just some small depth when we come back from the break that we are going to have. And we'll come back, it's 8:08, so we can come back at 8:30. I don't know. I know, or 45. I'm like, just sometime, what's it? Yeah, 15, 8:50. Yeah, 15 was fine. I'm good with that. So it'll be, yes, I know how to do it too. 8:25, 8:25. Yes. So go ahead, enjoy cafe. Cafe and cookies. Yeah. Ha, did she really? Yeah. It's amazing. Students really, really enjoy it. The science and the oceans and animals and yeah. With it. So they can see. Uh-huh. To see the picture. Good. Good. Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Sweet. Very nice. I love it. Yeah. Our kids too. What am I gonna do? Exactly. Hey, that's okay. That's why teachers share all the time. That's exactly why. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the last couple of things before we end our session for today. When we left, we were discussing and we were talking, of course, about the different strategies of reading and how, as a younger student, it's more of learning to read, like those stuck on the word strategies. And then as they get older, we move them into more thinking reading strategies. So when we left, we were looking at the posters of the infer, to visualize, predict, question, monitor, and clarify. So we're actually, in a few moments, we're going to do a monitor and clarify strategy that we have. Some of you will have it on your table, and then some of you do not, because somehow not all of the copies got into the envelopes. But I am going to place it up on the screen so that you will see it. So earlier, we used our reading response game board with our story, our fictional story of the dog and his reflection. So now we are actually going to reverse that. And in a few moments, we're going to use our nonfiction story of dolphins and porpoises, that actually is inside of your envelope. But before we do that, just a few things. Why comprehension is important. It is important because it is the understanding and interpretation of what is read. To be able to accurately understand written material, children need to be able to decode what they read, which was where our strategies of stuck on a word come from. Make connections between what they read and what they already know, and then think deeply about what they have read. So throughout the process of reading, there's a lot inside of it. And that is why, we've provided, and that's why we've kind of gone over some of the strategies of stuck on a word. Then as those are those decoding strategies. And then as they make connections between it, that's where, when, I know we have not used these a lot tonight, but we'll use them a little more tomorrow too. That's where those sentence stems and those sentence structure stems, they come in handy as well, because then they're making a connection to themselves, and they may not always know how to start the sentence of how to make a connection. And when we talk about making a connection, we don't mean like, oh, this is how it is in just my life. Like, there's many connections. We talk about, when we say making connections, it's between what the student knows already for themselves, their life. But then we also take that as a connection of, well, can you connect it to another book you've read? Can you connect it to another class that you were in? Can you connect it to a video or a movie that you've seen? Can you connect it to something that you've seen, on the internet? And so those connections aren't just about themselves, like those internal connections, but they're also about where in the world have they seen it themselves. Because students love to ask that question, why do we need to know this? Or why is this important? And so it's nice once that connection is made for themselves, and then they see it in other places because they understand the importance of it as well. And then, of course, thinking deeply about what they have read. And that is where both the posters the small page that I gave you of reading strategies comes from, but also our stop and jot, which is the emojis. Thank you. I was like, and there it went, flying out the window. Okay. So the emojis, we started using the emojis because in a few moments, one thing that we're going to do, two things. We are going to, you and your table group are going to read the porpoises, dolphins and porpoises. It is a nonfiction text, clearly. It's front and back, but the reason we're going to do two things is that you are not only going to work on the comprehension strategies, but also on how you could stop and jot. So what stop and jot means is stop, like we're going to stop and jot is simply writing something quickly. Now, just like note taking, jotting down something is not, when we're reading through it, we don't write incomplete sentences when we're jotting down notes. This is why we have our emojis, because in our school system, our students in our state, when they are in third grade, they have to start a state test. They have to take a state test, and it's in reading. And then as they get older, they have one, well, in math. They have one in reading and math, and it just keeps growing and growing. But they have to read a lot of passages, and sometimes with any student, when we read and read and read and read, but then we don't stop and think about it, we don't always remember every single thing we read. So the strategies of our stop and jot are exactly that. We tell our students, and we always model it for them first. We show them how to do it, and then throughout, like, we slowly let them kind of take ownership of it. But in this, I might have borrowed yours if it's not there. Is it there? Okay. So in this one, so their stop and jot, like, we would have them every time they had a small paragraph of words, then they would have to stop and jot. So the stopping and jot, oh my goodness, sorry, it's late. The stop and jot, we would use this one for fictional text, and then we actually have another that I'll show you that we use for nonfiction. But just for the sake of time tonight, we're going to kind of use both. So we would have them, rather than write out like, I have a question, I have an interesting part, I have a connection. What they would do on their writing is the page that they had, we would give them the passage. They would all have a copy of it. And then as they were reading with their partners, or even on their own, but most of the time it would be with partners first, then they would stop and they would jot. So I'm just going to imagine that I'm a student reading, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting part. So then I would put, or a favorite part of mine. So then I would just simply make the emoji with the hearts on it next to the part that I said, oh, I like that part, that's my favorite part. Or if, as I was reading, I was like, oh, I have a question about something that's here, the same idea. They would just find that emoji of a question, and they would create the emoji. Now, you will have some students that are like, I don't know how to draw him doing this. So we would say, draw a question mark. And the reason that we have both, though, is because then as they discussed their reading, they would say to each other, I wonder why, right? Why is, and then they would also take those sentences and that they have here, and they would put them into their reading, their notebooks, because we would always have them respond to their reading in their notebook, 1 or 2 sentences before they moved on, so that they had that opportunity to write as well as read. So what you are going to do tonight is, before we leave and before I show you, because I'm going to show you some websites, I hope. I opened a few and they were kind of thinking when I opened them. So I hope it will come up. I know. I'm like, I hope it'll come up. Right. So if you enter your table group, you will read the dolphins and porpoises, and then what I would like you to do is you are going to respond. One moment, let me move so this, and I think 3 of you probably will have this page. Okay, so this is actually what we're going to do with it. I know there are a few of you who have this page inside of the envelope, but unfortunately, they did not all make it across the pond from Texas. So 3 notebooks may have it. 3 envelopes may have it. If not, just you can take a picture. So unfortunately, they did not all get into the envelopes for here. And I might Let's see. I might be able to make it slightly bigger. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Whoop. Okay. But it's for nonfiction. So it's specifically for nonfiction. So, as you can see, I love games with dice. But one of the reasons that I did this is because, like we said, you have to travel from place to place, and I would like you to be able to use things that are easy for you to simply put in a notebook. And the dice aren't very big, so I was hoping that I could find some things that not only would be useful for you but helpful for you too, so that you can take them from place to place. So this is why I like them. Plus, you can do lots of things with dice. Okay, so what we're gonna do to work on this strategy of the nonfiction is you'll work the same way you did before. You're gonna read in this case, even though I know we said normally we wouldn't tell our students read the paragraph, but if you would just read the small parts of the paragraph and then just take turns. There is a front and a back. When you have completed it, when you've finished reading it, you can take a picture of that because they don't all have it. Yeah. So once you finish reading it, then you can begin the game with your dice of rolling it out, and then of course just you would see that. I don't know. Yeah, it's a different tab. So, okay. So, also, though, it tells you to write. We're not writing tonight. We're just going to talk it out tonight. But this is one of those writing activities that helps them. And we'll talk more tomorrow about some more writing things. So, yeah, it's on a different file. Sorry, I'm difficult. Can I borrow this just for one moment? Okay. Cecilia. Yeah. Want to do that? Because there's like one out of the 6 or 3. That's very nice of you. I'm so happy you fixed it. I mean, honestly, that's fine. I'm gonna come up and bring it. You can bring it tomorrow evening to the class. That's fine. Yeah, no. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. And then I can give you the money. The form. Like we said, we use the strategy of our stop and jot, and then of course rolling out to review to understand um, the reading strategies and the reading comprehension of both fiction and nonfiction. But then it also leads into their writing. So as you noticed on the page, it would say write three sentences or three interesting facts and whatnot. So with our writing, we always want to incorporate sorry, I said that backwards. With our reading, we always want to incorporate some of our writing. And tomorrow we'll talk a little about that too, a little more. Writing is one of those subjects that it's a little more difficult because students don't always feel as confident in it, but it is also one of the last of the strategies to come. So when we do these stop and jot strategies, we actually have the one that you saw with the marker, with the bookmark. We use that for our older students, our older primary students. With our very young primary students, we start getting them used to stop and jot by more simple pictures. So this is an example on the side of the good readers. They stop and they think about or they jot about. So with the younger students, we use simpler illustrations. So for example, what they wonder, it's a big W. What they think, they do a little thinking bubble. What they feel, there's a heart. What they connect to, and we always talk about the text, like do they connect them to what it says? Can they connect it to themselves or to the world? And the world is where we just talked about, it's everything around them. It's a movie they watch, a video game, a YouTube video, that's the world. And then, of course, we add one for the younger students, what the characters think, and we put a little, emoji with the thinking bubble as well, because as they get older with their writing and their reading, as we said before, it changes from learning to read to reading to learn, and character traits are very important in reading, but they're also a very good use of a language classroom because, within family, you always talk about how do you feel? What are your emotions? How are you feeling today? How did you feel when, this happened? So character traits and our language, in our language classes, they kind of coincide. When the students are learning about them in their reading classes, it's the emotions of the student, or of the character. It's the qualities of the character, like they're honest, they're capable, they're kind. And so we discuss that with our younger students because it actually works really well with all of the units that we do in language, like the community, the family, even transportation. Like I had to go visit my grandma and she was living in Argentina and I had to take a flight for the first time. How did I feel? So that's one of the reasons why we actually connect our traits, our character traits, to the younger students, because then as they get older, it becomes more complex for them. Like the inner workings of the character and how they change. Okay. So before we go tonight, so these are some of the websites. I know it's hard to see, so I'm gonna try to pull them up. That have free resources on them. I'm gonna start with, let's see if it comes up. Okay, so this is the first one. This is the first website, Colorín Colorado. And I really like this website. It's, of course, you don't have to sign into it or log into it. As soon as you open it, it's there. But the reason I like it is because there are strategies for you for how to do certain things. You simply search for them. There's research. Some people really want to understand and know why, and they have some really good articles of research. They have videos. They have recommendations of books, and sometimes they'll even put the children's books where you can play them and that. But the other reason that I like it is The website itself, it is all in English and in Spanish. And there's a home connection for your families that is in English and in Spanish. And so we use the home connection at the beginning of the year with our parents, and we say, we may not always give homework, traditional homework, which we'll talk about that tomorrow too. But they have to practice. They need practice for them to have their language, to grow in their language. They have to practice. And so sometimes that does mean giving them homework, but we try to make the homework more hands-on. We do a lot of things with vocabulary words, and we create a game list for the students to have, and the parents to have. So rather than them taking home a reading passage and saying, read this and answer these questions, we try to find ways that the students can take home word cards, word phrases, even paragraphs of a passage, and make it into a game that the whole family can play. Because we have noticed that if we do that, the students, they tend to come back and say, oh, last night I practiced, or last night I did. But if you give them a reading passage and questions, it's like, oh, I forgot my homework, miss. And so we're like, no, you didn't. You just didn't do it. So, but I do like this website because the parents will say, well, how can we help the students understand their reading, or how can we help them with their language, or how can we help answer, like, what kind of questions can we ask them? And they have that. They have a little note of, here's some questions to ask your students, or here's some games to play if we're working on the language for food and vegetables or plants and animals or whatnot. Then there's questions where it's like, go into your kitchen and play I Spy and see what you can find, and have the students, talk to you. So it's a really good website, and it's free, which is always the best, because I like free. Okay, I don't know if this one was going to open, so that's what I was wondering. Oh, it was trying, but it's not right. Okay, so let's try it a different way. Let's try it this way. So I'm going to see if I can make these bigger, because I know earlier I tried to open some and they were not happy. Okay, let me go here. Okay. So I know it's very small to see, and I'm sorry, but it is. So this website is called News, News, and then ELA. So News Ella. So it is a free website. It has reading articles in it from early grades, all grade levels, all the way to high school grade levels. And it is also in English and Spanish. And it can be opened at home on devices. Now, I don't know how many students may have computers, but I know sometimes they have phones. And so, there is that option. That doesn't mean they have to do it, but it will open on a phone or a tablet or a computer. And you can print off the things on it, or take photos of it or screenshot it, and it's all free. It's free for you, so it doesn't cost anything. You do have to log in, but it asks if you're a teacher, and then after that, it's free. So it's a really good. It's good because it takes the language, like we said, sometimes we want to try to go cross-curricular, and so this is really good for that because it'll have things in science and social studies and history, and then science, which I know I just said, but sometimes it'll have real-world events, like things that are happening around the world too, as well. And then this next one. So, sorry, I'm not used to this little big. Okay, this next one the educational games and more, that is also, that's what we were talking about earlier, the Epic. Let me see, or education.com. Let me see if it'll let me open it. Some of these would let me open them, and some of them were not letting me. So, okay. So this is also, this one is called, it's education.com. Same thing. It has games, it has activities, it has worksheets. Education.com. It is also free. You just have to log in and sign up. But there's no monetary, there's no money that's involved. It's all free. And they have a lot of, like it says, they have activities, they have games, they have lesson plans. So if you're having one of those nights where like, I just can't think of something to do, then you can always look it up. But education.com. And then, this is one. I was hoping this one was going to open. Let's see if it will. Okay. Well, I don't think it's going to let me do that right now. Oh, it did. Okay. So this one, let me see if it let me sign in my way in for myself. Okay, no, it did not. Okay. So, whoops, hold on. I just closed it. Okay, this here, ReadWorks, this is another really good website as well. It is free. This one, I was trying to get it to open under my account so you could kind of see more of it, but it won't take it. So ReadWorks, it is in English and Spanish. I know I keep saying that, but sometimes your counterparts who are like, I don't know what to do or what to use, then you can say, I have this really nice website. It's in Spanish and English. I like this one. It opens. I know that you may not always have technology available in the classroom, but if you ever do, or if they have it at home, you can set up, when you set your account up, you can put all your students on it. There's no limit to the amount of students that can be on the roster. But one of the reasons I like this is on the computer. This is something that if they at home, it'll open on a tablet, it'll open on a phone. I know it's small on a phone, but the stories, they can be read to the student. So the student can read the story, but they can also hear the story. And so one of the reasons I like this site is that within the stories that they have, the choices of the stories, they have assessments where they can take the assessment, they can write the answers, but then when they take the questions, it's automatic feedback of what they got right and what they got wrong. So it'll show you, they put it in green and they put it in red, but it doesn't show, and you can even like put the graph up on the board to show the students like, oh, look where everybody is, but it doesn't put names of students. It just kind of shows the levels. Sometimes we do that to kind of instill the competitive vibe in them, the competitive notion, and we'll use it as a game kind of sense. So that one's, it's an interesting website. We like that one a lot. We use that probably too much, but we do. And then, let's see. I was going to see if. And then these others, they're the same thing. They're free resources of games and activities that you can use and do. So it's an eslfriend.com. And then I was hoping to open Epic, but I tried it earlier and it's not liking me tonight. So I'll try to open Epic tomorrow so you can see it because it's really good as well. So the eslfriend.com. And it's the same idea. It just has some resources and things because we're always finding ways to. And then I think this is the. Okay. And then this is also another website that has a lot of good resources on it called We Are Teachers. So. And then tomorrow I'll try, like I said, I'll try to open Epic. Epic is good. It has a lot of good books and things for the students to read and to choose from. We're teachers. I know it's small. And then also a site that I did not put up here, but if you know about Teachers Pay Teachers, yeah, so Teachers Pay Teachers, it's the same thing. You have to log in. You do not have to, well, there are resources on it that are free, and there are resources you have to pay for, but on the side, you can always push free, and it'll come up with the choices that you have. Something else, though, to know about Teachers Pay Teachers, if any of you are very creative and you use the computer a lot and you like to do that, then you can always go into Teachers Pay Teachers as a like a seller, and you can place your resources and things on there, and then other teachers around the world will buy them and pay you. So I don't know how much. I haven't looked out to see how much of a percentage like that the company takes out, but it's always an option because I can tell you that there are so many teachers looking for Spanish resources that's actually really hard to find, and it's just something to put out there. Just saying. Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can get Epic to open. Let's see, and then that'll be the last for tonight. Let's see if I can get Epic to open. No, I don't want that. I bet it won't. No, that's what I thought. I was trying to read that. Okay. So Epic, I'll try for Epic. I'll try that for tomorrow. But it's get GET Epic EPIC.com, and that is also a site where you would log in. It's free, and then you can place your students on our roster, and then they have options of reading books and audio books and read to me books. So I'll have to try to get that to open up tomorrow because it's reading it as like a time that it's closed, and so it's not coming up tonight. So we'll try that tomorrow when we get here. Okay, so we have talked about a lot. And then, of course, like I said, all of the sites will be on your external drive. I know. Okay, so that's the end for tonight. Tomorrow is our last night together, or last day together, last night together. And tomorrow we'll focus a little more on a few other writing strategies, and then also how we use our cognates for writing. And then the last part of the evening tomorrow will be how to take everything that we've talked about and put it into your time schedule. So if you have something like markers to write with, something dark and so that stands out, if you could bring those tomorrow, because we are going to place some information on a big page. If you can, I think there's some there's still some. I was gonna say I think there's still some here. So and then we're gonna share that out. So tomorrow's kind of objective of it, guest of tomorrow, is we'll talk a little more about our writing strategies because there's a few that we did not go over tonight. and talk about the importance of our cognates in our writing and our reading. And then we'll focus on how do we take all of that and place it into the time that you have. And then we'll share. So I really appreciate it again that all of you could come and all the people who are listening somewhere else. I'm glad they have gotten this opportunity. So thank you all. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.